Awesome. You know what's interesting and exciting stuff is
Oh,
the first setup for our article. Is this? It would have been actually amazing if you chose Jason Schreier's like article going in from that segue,
all
but
right.
it's somebody else.
Yeah, it's not Jason Schreier, unfortunately. But it is coming from The Verge. Antonio G. De Benedito. That's how I'm gonna say it. Said a little bit of accent. You hear that?
I did. It sounded good.
I don't know if
Hopefully,
it's
it's
right,
right.
but I'm sorry, Antonio. So this article actually is I saw this when it was one of the like when I see articles like this, I'm like we have to cover stuff like this because I feel like it's good to inform the community, but also just it's very interesting for me as a hardware buff. So there's never been a better time to buy an SSD for your PC or PS5 because that's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a PS5, you can update the storage pretty easily and even add more storage, I believe. So if you have an M.2, then yeah. What used to be a costly upgrade for gamers and content creators is now a no-brainer, and the deals may continue getting better. So, if you've ever seen Verge's daily deals coverage on the recent Amazon Prime Day sales fervor, you might have noticed that we witnessed the lowest solid-state drive prices we've ever seen. It wasn't that long ago that choosing an SSD over a hard disk was a pricey endeavor, best left to deep-pocketed PC builders and hardcore enthusiasts. And I can attest to this. So when I originally built my PC in 2017, the 256 gigabyte SSD I bought, like the M.2, it was like, I think it was like $150, $200. And now you can get that for 25, 30. It's so
Yeah,
cheap
it's
now.
actually pretty wild.
Yeah, and like now that's like not even 2 terabytes is that much now. It's kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, it says now you'll find an SSD in every PS5, Xbox Series X, and most computers. And if the price trend continues, won't be surprised if they start getting thrown in as a free gift when you buy a desk or bookshelf from IKEA. It's pretty good. It's pretty
That's pretty intense.
good. How much for a price drop are we talking? Well, consider this: the best-selling internal SSD on Amazon is a 2 terabyte Samsung 980 Pro, which is selling for around $120 and has fallen 60% in price just since this time last year, according for most of the 76% drop over its lifetime. As for its younger, hotter, and faster running sibling, the 2 terabyte Samsung 990 Pro, the highest ranked seller on Amazon among newer SSDs, at $150, it's dropped about 58% since it launched in November of 2022 at $309. Dude, that's a steep
Jeez.
drop in a short amount of time, I feel like.
Yeah, you know what might have something to do with this? Remember during like the lockdown, everything was being charged like astronomically more in terms of electronics because like the chip shortage and stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is just like getting to the true price of what it should actually be now, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Solid theory. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I would agree with that. Um, Definitely likely. It's a breath of fresh air to see valuable and essential tech for us gamers and PC builders actually get cheaper, and it feels like lots of devices and streaming services have only been slowly creeping upwards in price over time. Besides, more devices need more SSDs than ever now, with many consoles, laptops, and desktops offering a second M.2 slot you can fill. Handheld consoles like the Steam
yeah.
Deck and Asus ROG Ally are begging for more space. It's very true. A lot of these handhelds, and especially PS5, it's like they just have the extra slot. And they're like, hey, we make it so you can easily expand. I'm looking at Xbox, Mike. With these
Dude,
with these
proprietary
proprietary
crap.
storages, dude. I'm
Yeah.
looking at you, Xbox. You got the Game
The
Pass, you got that value, and then this is what you do to your console. Like what?
I think maybe what if it's a conspiracy that Xbox is trying to make their console obsolete so we get on PC and have to pay for the Game Pass on PC, which costs more.
It's a very likely theory. Honestly, I'd believe it.
I, I like it when you agree with me.
Just saying, dude. I agree with the truth. What can I say? Um,
Conspiracy theory.
yeah, no. Conspiracy theory pod. That's all this is becoming. Yeah. Compared to traditional hard drives, even a fairly basic M.2 NVMe SSD is lightning fast and more than adequate for the average user. Now, however, we've been watching prices drop steadily for weeks on some of the fastest and most sought after SSDs in the market, and the downward trajectory may yet go further. prices are bottoming out because of major chip manufacturers like Samsung are overstocked with inventory, like you said, Mike. and, so,
Hey yo.
and not enough demand. With prices tumbling as a result, according to Reuters report, these prices are not expected to bottom out until later this quarter and possibly not and not recover until next year. So it's a great time to share the best deals we're seeing with you. And they got a little chart here about the Samsung 980 SSD, 980 Pro SSD price trend since it's like October of 2021, and just in the past,
It's
2
wild.
years, it's it's quite the drop. We're talking at it was this SSD was originally at roughly around 230. Now it's dropped down to $60. So it's like, geez, man. Yeah, these prices are definitely crazy. I mean, that's literally just 2 years.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy.
Sticking with Samsung for a second, the Samsung 980 Pro, with a sequential read speed of 6,400 megabytes per second, is more than fast enough for use in the PlayStation 5. And adding one more than doubles the console's usable 666 gigabyte of built-in space. It's now selling with the heatsink, which Sony says the PS5 requires, for just $80 at retailers like Amazon and Best Buy. That's $70 cheaper than it was last July and $170 less than it sold for in the fall of 2021. For even more storage, the 2TB 980 Pro with a heatsink is currently $140, which was $130 cheaper than it was just a year ago at Best Buy.
Sheesh.
It's crazy,
And that
Mike.
heatsink looks clean. I think I have the same. I have something very similar in my PC.
Yeah.
How many SSDs do you have in your PC?
I have
Do you
two
have an
M.2.
M.2?
I have two.
Yeah.
I have the one I started with, which was 250 gigabyte,
Okay.
and then I bought a 2 terabyte, like I think later last year. Because it was so cheap, and now it's like even cheaper. It's like I should have waited, but
Maybe.
it's like, but yeah, I actually bought the 2 terabyte SSD to replace a 1 terabyte. I think it was like a 1 terabyte 2.5 inch SSD, which actually the connector like
Yeah.
started dying on, so I had to get the new one. But yeah, so it's but yeah, I mean M.2. I think I personally didn't understand the use case of a heatsink in like on an SSD, like an M.2 like this. I didn't understand the use case for it, but it makes sense in terms of like the consoles, because like PS5, it's like they don't really there's like like on my motherboard there's thermal pads like on a metal plate that you screw in on top of the
Yeah.
SSD to actually keep it cool. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that. But yeah, consoles like like PS5 and probably some others don't really have that luxury of like being able to keep the actual SSD cool. So you definitely need
True.
something like this in order to dissipate that heat so you don't fry the electronics. But it's all making sense now, because I've seen and I think the main reason I was like it was kind of confusing me was I watched like I think it was Jay's 2 cents video or something like that, when they were at the store and they were talking about SSDs, and I think he had accidentally like bought an SSD or something that had a heatsink on it, so he ended up like having to pry it off or something like that because he didn't
Oh
feel like
no.
going back and
Yeah.
buying one that had it. I think I
That
don't know
was
if he
like
like
3 years ago, wasn't it?
it was a
Or
long
something
time
like
ago.
that?
I don't know if he
Yeah.
ruined it. I can't remember what happened, but I thought it was funny. He's like trying to pry it off. It's like he could have just like returned it and got one, probably without a heatsink. But um, even we'll continue on a little bit with the article. Even the newer Samsung 990 Pro, which is overkill for the PS5, but well suited for as a top tier gaming desktop, can be had for 1 terabyte of storage for just $80 at Amazon and Best Buy. A price you might have thought unthinkable when it launched at just 8 months ago and around $100 more. But
Yikes.
what's really shocking is the 2 terabyte version of Samsung's 990 Pro, which is currently $150 at Amazon, and even briefly sold for $130 on a Prime Day Lightning deal. Even without the added time-sensitive discount, today's price for the 2 terabyte is about $163 less than what Amazon was charging in December, just before prices were cast down a well. Dang, dude, if I didn't have
Oh
to
yeah, for
replace,
sure.
if I didn't have to replace an SSD at the time, could have waited. It's wild, dude. These times, it's crazy, Mike.
You know, I'm so they were only really talking. Not a lot of people really know this. It's kind of one of those things you got to Google and figure out on your own because I don't think it's really advertised. But PC Part Picker, right? You've heard of it. I know you've used it before.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular, but some people who haven't, um, in terms of like finding these prices and stuff, they're only really talking about Amazon and Best Buy. Where if you go to PC Part Picker and type in Samsung 990 Pro, if you wanted to go, well, on Best Buy, it's actually $170, $160, mind you. But there are other platforms. There's like Newegg, which is a very popular place. There's you can buy directly from Samsung. So you don't have to go strictly to Amazon. Amazon's actually more, $190.
Yeah.
So always alternatives. But
Yeah, that's a
it's
good
cool to
point.
see the prices dropping, man.
Yeah, for
Really
sure.
cool.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I'll probably be like majority of this discount will probably be kind of temporary, but I mean, it just
Yeah.
means that if you want an SSD, like now's the time to buy because who knows, maybe this cheap again.
Facts. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I would continue on the article. They're pretty much just talking about like this SSD is this much down and this SSD is this much down, and
Yeah,
they
all the
show
context and stuff.
they show a couple of charts too as well, of each one and kind of how they've decreased in price. But yeah, they even talk. There's even here, which is the pricing of just 2 terabyte NVMe drives in general, kind of like how they have dropped in the last like 18 months. But yeah, it's definitely a downward trend for the most part. So again, if you're in the market for a M.2 SSD, and honestly, this is like, I mean, especially after like doing a bunch of research over the past few months, it's kind of like this is going to be the new form factor, and this is what all motherboards nowadays, especially, are geared towards.
100%.
They're geared towards M.2s because, I mean,
Yep.
dude, the form factor, it's so small. It's tiny, doesn't take up much space. You don't need like crazy like cooling for it. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, dude, it's kind of crazy to think the days of hard drives are just like over for gaming. Anyways, it's like there's no like real use for them, honestly.
Well, that's not entirely true, right? Because how many games are coming out or that are already out that are over 100 gigs? I can like isn't Warzone 250 gigs or something? And like
Yeah,
Master Chief Collection, that's like 6 games into one. But that's over like 125 gigs, and that's even without adding the campaign. That's just like the multiplayer.
yeah,
So there's still a use case, and I think it's gonna keep getting more and more with the size of games. If you're a gamer, it's really necessary. But if you're like a workhorse, like it's your workstation, you don't need more than 2 terabytes, really.
no.
I don't think.
Which I mean, man, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure M.2, it's like it doesn't really go over 2 terabytes. Like I think 2 terabytes is kind of the limit for most affordable M.2s. So, um,
Yeah.
I mean,
After that, you basically need a server rack of stuff,
I
right?
mean, yeah, like yeah, it's one of those things, man. Like these, but like even for the use case for gaming, there's not really like there's nothing I can think of where like a hard drive is really required because like most people they'll utilize like a 2 terabyte, but they can always just upgrade and install another one pretty easily. So you can just bounce
True.
back and forth. I mean, it's definitely at a point where like even dude, I mean, even if you have a budget PC, I mean, these prices are like ridiculous. Like you can like even most budget builds, there's no reason not to do this now, pretty much. Maybe not necessarily 2 terabytes, but even like a 1 terabyte is going to be really cheap. So, um,
That's actually a really, really good point.
you
And
know,
not only that, but you can basically use similar to what you probably have with your I think you said 240 gigs or 250 gigs, uh your M.2. So you basically have like a small M.2 to run your processor and like essential programs and your Windows software applications. And then you can have basically a disk drive or like a 2.5-inch SSD that's still really good, have a SATA connection to everything, and that just stores all of your games.
yeah, yeah. There's many possibilities, right, for configuration. Um,
100%, yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know, dude. If anyone's out there looking for storage, especially for your PC, or even if you have a console, you have a PS5 and you want to, upgrade that hard drive because it's certainly not the best option what you get stock. So it's
Oh,
definitely, I
yeah.
think, worth considering. So definitely check your local Amazon, your local Best Buy, see what they got out there. May surprise you.
Facts. Or check out, I actually have a Sambrent, Rocket or Sambrent, like, style SSD, M.2 drive for, like it's a 2 terabyte. It got really cheap because those are mostly geared towards servers, and at the time, they weren't really making or selling as much as their products. So
Yeah,
I put it on my gaming PC, and I got, like, a pretty good deal on it. I don't remember what the price was. I know it's not as cheap as these prices, but it was a good deal at the time, And it's really cool to see that name brand, our very reliable brand, building SSDs for Steam Deck and the Rogue Ally and the Microsoft Surface. So it's
Yeah,
like it's very trusted, I think, is
yeah, it's
really
very
what I'm
true.
getting at here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they're one of many where it's kind of like they're definitely a cheaper name, quote unquote, but I mean, it's,
Yes.
works just as well. And it's cool to see this kind of like this
Cheaper but
smaller.
reliable.
It's like a smaller form factor too, right? I mean, look at this.
Yeah,
It's like one of
so
those
cool.
stubby SSDs,
Mhm.
which I thought in general was an older form factor, but it seems like even nowadays the new NVMe are just they're utilizing it too, which I think for something like a Rogue Ally or like a Steam Deck, this size makes more sense, right? It's not some long stick; it's just like a
Yeah.
little square.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And it's gonna tie into the future of them making the portable, replaceable batteries that we talked about in last week's episode.
very true. Look at this call out. That was
Call out.
crazy. Let's
Go
go.
check it out.